Hey everyone. If you checked out my other video, and you tried to follow along with the web scraping in Node.js um, video tutorial there, you probably noticed that it got a little dated. As you can see, it was just over a year ago, but at the same time, a lot has changed in the JavaScript scene, and I wanted to go ahead and give that a quick update because even with the website that we're going to be working with today, they went ahead and they did a refactor so that now it is awesomely built with React. But when it comes to web scraping, obviously that can be problematic because it changes things a little bit. So let's go ahead and walk through just how you can go ahead and grab your favorite images from Unsplash. Again, by node scraping with Node.js using more modern syntax. Great, so I'm going to be here on my desktop, and in case you're wondering what I'm using, uh, as far as Node goes. So what is it? 8.11.1. So there we go, and then npm is 5.6. Okay, cool. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and create this directory, and we're going to go ahead and call it image scraper. And let's go ahead and get into that one. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Image scraper. Awesome. Now because I'm using npm, let's go ahead and get this package initialized. I'm just going to say dash dash yes to accept all the defaults. If you leave that off, just make sure you press enter and accept the defaults to get you there. Cool. Before we head into our editor, I'm going to install two packages actually. Uh, so npm I. I'm not going to be using yarn, but so npm is just if you want to follow along, feel free to use yarn if you'd like. npm, and there's our good friend Cheerio. We'll talk more about that. And then there's also Axios, which is super popular, but we're going to be using that to make requests if you're not familiar. Now there is a third one. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter to install those. There is a third one. It's FS, short for file stream, but we don't have to install that one because that one is actually built into Node.js itself. Cool, so they're both small packages relatively. It takes a super short amount of time. What do we have here? So we have no modules, we have our package.json. Let's go ahead and create a directory just so we don't get flooded with images, just to house our images itself. And then lastly, we want a place to work in, so I'm going to do app.js to create the file there. Great. Now I'm using Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And there we are. Perfect. So here is our happy place. This is where we're going to be at. Now I'm not one to type node app.js every single time. So just to knock this out, sort of a preliminary setup here, let's go ahead and say for start, we can go ahead and have this run node app.js. And then we're also going to have a, what can we call it here? We'll just say refresh. And what this is going to do is every time we want to clear out the images in our images directory, we can go ahead and do npm run refresh, and it should be able to do that for us. So I'm going to say rm -r -f, sorry, to force this to happen. And we're going to do images/star. So everything inside of that directory, go ahead and just wipe it out. Now what's our objective? Well, this is the homepage for unsplash.com. I love using this site because they are super duper free and don't care really at all what you do with these photos. People post them, think of it like open source, and they have a nice little license agreement here which makes it crystal clear of what they want to do. But back on their homepage, if I do a search for like cat, cat gets a little played out. Let's do turtle. So if I search for turtles, I get tons of images with awesome turtles. And if you follow my first tutorial, You probably got here and you're like, great, I'm just going to go ahead and scrape them. Except, again, they redid their site in React, and now we need to figure out things differently. One of the cool things is that if you hover over here, you get a nice little pop-up. So with this pop-up, you get their name, you get the amount of likes, you can collect it, I guess, and super handy, we're going to come back to this. It looks like there's a button here, and when you click on it, it lets you download the image. Now I'm going to go ahead and just touch on that and walk away from it. We'll come back to it, but we'll see how that is important to us with us building our application. Awesome. So here we are. Again, we're grabbing these photos and we are downloading them to our computer. So let's go ahead and bring in our dependencies. So we have the first one. As I mentioned, it's going to be fs. We're going to go ahead and require this in. Next up, we're going to go ahead and bring in Cheerio. Okay. And then, of course, we have Axios. So if you're not familiar with these, I'm going to go ahead and provide some documentation in the description. So feel free to just go ahead and check those out. So what does what, right? We have fs. Now this was super simple to kind of, well, what's the word? Come to terms with. Short for file stream. You can basically do a whole bunch of stuff related to the file stream. We're just going to be using it to help save the images. We have Cheerio. A short kind of description on that. Cheerio is basically kind of like Java or jQuery for Node.js for the server side. So you can do things like grab elements. We're going to go ahead and assign our variable the dollar. That way it can kind of mimic the way that jQuery did things. And last up, we have Axios. Axios is super handy, super nice, and easy to contribute to, by the way. Slight disclaimer is, yeah, I get my PRs merged with Axios super, super quick. So check them out. I love the library, but of course there is fetch on the front end as well. So steps that we're going to do to get this project done. Let's just go ahead and list them out. We have the first one. And the first one is we want to, let's say, fetch the site. Because obviously we have to grab the site before we can do anything with it. When we do that, the next step would probably be, let's see here, we got the site. Now I want to grab the images. And then next, we can go ahead and save images. So a nice little outline to help keep our flow here. And I guess we can have a fourth one, which would probably be just put them all together, right? Because if you think about it, fetching the site, grabbing images, and saving images, they can all operate independently. But our app really comes together when we put them all together. Cool, so we have that. And let's get some initial variables up here. All I can think of is really just one, where I'm going to have this const, and it's going to be, well, what are we searching for? Right? And I mentioned that cats are a little played out, so we can go ahead and do like turtles. And this is cool, except now we kind of have to have everybody come to the guts of our application. If they wanted to search for something else, right, they'd have to come in here and modify that. Nothing wrong with that if that's the way you want to do it, but I'm going to show you a different way. And this is through using process.env. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to search term. And I'm going to say, well, if there isn't this process.env.search term variable, then go ahead and assign it turtles, right? So what is going on with this bad boy right here? Well, check this out. If I go ahead and bring up the terminal, and I do, without having anything else in here, if I just do npm start, whoa, and I should probably log this out, right? So console.log search term. I haven't done anything with this, so I should get turtles. And whoa, whoa, whoa. What do we have here? It doesn't know what process is because I'm missing an S. Okay. So if I rerun this, sure enough, I get turtles. So how do I change this? Well, it's actually super easy. If I do search term equals, and then we'll say what's better than a cat? I don't know. How about a dog? And then I run npm start. Mwahaha. I get a dog, right? So we're going to take advantage of that. So that way, no one has to get into our application. They can just specify what they want as a search term. Cool. So we have that in place. Now we want to go ahead and fetch the site. So let's go ahead and keep this different, again, from what we've done typically, where we just lay out all the logic inside a single function. It will break out the separations of concern. So we'll have a function. We're going to call it fetch. We can be somewhat explicit, I think. So fetch Unsplash data. We don't really need to give it anything. Whoops. But then we'll say return, because we want this to be promise-based, which is what Axios is. We're going to say axios.get, and it's going to need the URL that we're working with. So let's go ahead and grab this one, but we want to make some modifications. So I'm going to open up some backticks, not regular parens, or regular quotes. That way I can go ahead and stick in my search text. Just like that. Term. So Axios is great, but if you're used to fetch, you're probably aware of the caveat, which is when you call this, it doesn't give you back, well, I guess it doesn't know what to give you back, right? It defaults to JSON, but in our instance, we actually don't want the JSON. We want just the HTML. Now, when you go to this endpoint, it's not a JSON endpoint, so we're good there. But it's still going to give us all this meta information that we don't really care about. Things like the headers, pagination. I'll let you console log that out if you like, but just know that it's going to give us the response. And the actual data that we care about is going to live on response.data. So kind of like how fetch does response.json, we're just saying, hey, whatever data you are, which is going to be HTML, then go ahead and bring that in under data. So we can go ahead and test this out real quick by calling fetch Unsplash data. And then we'll say, hey, now that I got the data, just go ahead and log that out. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the side because it's about to get large. But if I go ahead and start this, what do I get? Well, it's taking its time. It's going out there, and then boom. Look at all of this. And the only way, I mean, you could scroll through and try and decipher it. I know a lot of you guys are smarter than I am, so by all means, if that's how you do it. I just like to look at the bottom. And yep, that is HTML to me and ends in HTML. I'm good. Great. So I'm going to get rid of this and stick with our plan here. So we know we're getting back the HTML that we care about. So recall that we're doing that so that we can parse this document and say, well, just give me back the images. So let's have another function. And we're going to call it grab images. Now it's going to go ahead and take in some data. We know that. But in this case, though, because I want them, again, to operate independently, If I chain it onto fetch Unsplash data, I'm good. It becomes basically promisified. But if I want to use it on its own, I want to go ahead and return a new promise. So I'm constructing my own. Now promises take a callback function. And inside its callback function, we get past resolve and reject, our dear friends. So I have that, and the first thing that I want to account for is, well, only do this part if there is actually data. So if there is data, I need to go ahead and start accessing some elements within this document. And if you recall, that is where dear friend Cheerio comes into play. So it's going to go ahead and treat it a little bit like jQuery, and we're going to use that to traverse and manipulate items on here. So as mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and name this $, just as a slight convention here. And we're going to go ahead and assign that $to Cheerio.load our data. So take this HTML, load it, and Cheerio is going to say, hey, I can go ahead and parse this out so that you can access it for later. Great. So if data, go ahead and do that. Now what do we want to do? Well, let's take a look at the site. What are we trying to access? I'm going to open up the dev tools. So on a Mac, Command Option J. I think on Windows it's Command Shift J, Control Shift J. And this is the part, this is the grand reveal. This is how things broke from my last video to this one. So I have this image, and before you can just grab the image and everything was great. But everything is tucked away now in a source set. Now you can still do it with the source set and just make those slight changes and you'll be good. But even better though, instead of grabbing this thumbnail, how about we grab the full resolution image? That way we don't have to deal with any pixelation or things like that. So what I found is there's this button here, but the problem is it only shows up, they're so tricky with this, it only shows up when you're not trying to select it, right? You kind of have to hunt for it. Well, I'm tenacious, so that's exactly what I did. So here is the image, and let's see if we can kind of track it down. So here is a div. It looks like the next div takes me beneath where that download button would be. So I'm going to check in here. And what do I have here? I have the image, it looks like. Some random stuff up top. Okay, this is the area that I'm looking for. All right, and well, what do you know? Let's take a peek in here, and we found our download button. This is awesome. And so it looks like it's a anchor tag with a title attribute of download photo. So basically, if I can select all of these, and then I can say, well, just give me the href of that. You notice that when I click on it, they have a download force of true. So it's going to go ahead and pull this full resolution image and ask me if I want to go ahead and download it. So there we go. I'm going to select cancel because we're going to automate that process. So an anchor tag with the title of download photo, note the capital D. Cool. So let's do const. I'm going to call it image links, and this is going to equal our document, our jQuery version of our document. Kind of think of it like that, but Cheerio to be more specific. And plural, right? Not just one link. Go ahead and when you call this, give me the anchor tag, and inside of this, it's going to be where the title equals, and I'll open up some double quotes, download photo. Now this is going to give me not just the first one, it's going to give me all of them. So when I do that, I want to go ahead and map over it. Now don't let your IntelliSense fool you. This will be super, super important. Is that this map isn't coming from native JavaScript. This is coming from Cheerio. They have their own implementation. The reason why this is important is because you don't pass as the first item the value that you're looking for. So in this case, like the image itself, it's backwards. So it's going to be the index followed by the image. Cool. But if you know that, then you're golden. But every time you have index first, note that this is going to be a method coming from Cheerio. So I'm going to add in some parentheses around those since I have more than one parameter. Awesome. So for each image, what do I want to do? I want to go ahead and, let's say, return, and then we're going to have to put this in a jQuery method again. I keep saying jQuery, but Cheerio method. And I want to go ahead and grab the image, and which attribute in particular? I want the href. Cool, so just to step through this code, I know it's a little imperative, but if there is data, go ahead and load it up into a Cheerio document. When you do that, look through the links and grab all of the links that have a title of download photo, and for each one of those, give me the href. It's still returning a Cheerio version of the href, but this is good, and this can get us on to our next portion. But again though, quick little sanity check. I'm going to go ahead and save this out. And let's put the two together that we have so far. So I have fetch Unsplash data. Let's go ahead and call that. Next up, we're going to say then. And if I go ahead and, let's see here, get out of that. If I go ahead and grab the images, it's automatically going to be passed the result of fetch Unsplash data. So grab images, cool. Next up, what do we want to do with that result? Well, let's go ahead and say then, take the data, and we'll just console.log that out to see what we get back. Perfect, so now if I run this, what do we get here? That's going to go out, it's going to do its thing, and uh-oh, got a compiler error. And what do I have here? Title equals download photo. I bet you were screaming at me. It looks like I have an open bracket here. I am missing a closing bracket right there. Good eyes to everybody who caught that. If I run it again, what do I get? I get nothing. Nothing popped up. Why is that? Because, and this is super important, it looks like I forgot it here. It's not return. We want to go ahead and take our image links, actually return that and resolve with our image links. There we go. So that way we basically take that information and we bubble it up. Third time's the charm. And there we go. So one thing I always like to say is definitely I could have edited that out, but you know, mistakes happen. So it really is an idea of how to debug past them. And if you check this out, we are well on our way, right? We definitely have the hrefs in here. But as I mentioned, this is a Cheerio object. So it's not exactly what we want, but fortunately Cheerio knows how to handle all this stuff. Cool. So again, let's get rid of this. And last step, we just want to go ahead and save our images. Now I'm not going to create a promise within this because saving images is something that could just be done on its own. But I'm going to say go ahead and save the images, it's definitely going to need to take in some, what will we call it here? I guess images. And then what are you going to do? Well, for each one, whoops, I'm mixing my arrow function and function declaration syntax. There we go. I'm passing those images. What are we going to do in here? Well, let's say for images.map. And don't let this fool you, because we're going to need to iterate over all the images. But as you recall from what we just barely logged out, it's a Cheerio object that we're getting back. So this map is not the native JavaScript map. Again, I repeat that it is not the native JavaScript map. This is the one coming from Cheerio. So as I iterate over this Cheerio object, I'm being passed the index first, and then the image itself. Once I have that, and again, I'm adding my parens. Cool. Now I can go ahead and do some things. So I have the href. I'm going to go ahead and make a call to Axios, except this time, I'm not going to say get, because get tries its best to get the data from there, whether it be HTML, JSON, etc. But in our case, we want to switch this up. We still want the method to be get, but we want the response type, the capital T, to be stream. So we want to stream this data in as it comes in, which is a pretty efficient way of grabbing photos, because obviously they can be very large, so you want to stream it and do something with it instead of waiting for the entire thing to be done. Lastly, the URL. It's kind of tricky. The URL in this context, again, Cheerio knows how to work with this, is just the image. So we asked for just the hrefs. We got passed in a Cheerio object, but it knows that when we need to use this within map, that the image refers to the href. Don't believe me? Feel free to throw in a quick console log and check that bad boy out. Cool, so we have that. And then it's business as usual. We can go ahead and say, when you get your response, do dot, and then we'll have, then, whoops, there we go. Go ahead and say then. We'll have each, and we'll just say each item. Cool. For each item in there, what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to go ahead and say we should just save it. But when it comes in at a stream, we take that item and the current data that's with it, and we want to pipe that. So pipe just basically means stick it in somewhere as it's coming in. And how we're going to do this, we're going to say fs.create write stream. And this cool thing is that it knows how to work with streams. And all we have to do, as you can see right here, is give it a path. And the path is essentially the file name. So again, I'm going to open up some backticks because I'm going to be inserting a template. And I'm going to say the path should be /images, which is that directory we created, / and here's where we get fancy. Here's our template, and I'm going to go ahead and stick in here the search term. Whoa. Search term. Not done yet though, because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stick in lowercase the index. So what is it going to look like? If I look for turtles, it's going to be turtles. But obviously I can't have 100 things named turtles. I need to differentiate them somehow. So I'm going to give it the index as well. Lastly, I want to give it the extension, which is in our case going to be JPEG. So we have this going here. It's saved. And this is essentially the saving portion of our saved images. and let's go ahead and put this all together. So our first function, fetch Unsplash data, grab images, save images. Fetch Unsplash data, then grab images, then save images, just like that. Yeah, let's go ahead and log this out. I think we're in pretty good shape. And if not, we can quickly debug. Let's start this out. So it's going off, it's fetching, it's trying to do its thing. And remember, these are high res, so if you're on a slow internet connection, sorry for you. Here we go, here we go. And boom, nothing showed up in my console, which is perfect because I don't have a console.log. But if I look inside of my images directory, I have all of these turtles.jpegs. This is great. Now they're full size, so I'm going to go ahead and open them up in my Finder. If you're on Windows, just go ahead and look into your folders. And what do I have here? Awesome images of turtles. Great. Perfect. One last thing I want to go ahead and double check is, or rather are, my last two commands. So I'm going to go and clear this out, npm run, and what do we call it? Refresh. Go ahead and do that, and cool. It went ahead and deleted everything, and I can do npm, or rather, let's go ahead and get a search term. Underscore term equals, and we'll do dog this time, followed by our dear friend npm start. So we have that set up. Now our search term is going to be dogs. So just to make sure this gets going, perfect. I'm getting dog images. This one just happens to be of lower resolution. But if I look at the others, oh, I get a couple here. Cool. This one's still streaming in. You can see it's cut off there. Still going, still going. And you notice that when I go back to it now it's too large to view. So that was a perfect example of what happens when you're streaming data. Cool. But yeah, if I open this up in my Finder, I do in fact get all of my wonderful dog photos right there. Awesome. So I hope this helps, and I'm sorry for the delay. I did mean to get this out sooner, but hopefully now that you have this, you can be well on your way of scraping images from Unsplash. But if you like the video, feel free to comment. Definitely subscribe, as I'm making a goal to pump out more videos this year. But as always, feedback is appreciated. Let me go ahead and close this out. But definitely thank you for your time, and you guys have yourself a wonderful day.